Our first speaker is going to be Alex Yarosh of Metabase. After 15 years spent in software engineering, math research, and data science, Dr. Alex Yarosh found their true calling in teaching people to love data. A Metabase superfan turned Metabase employee, they liked the product so much, they decided to join the team that builds it. And I would usually say now, put your hands together for Alex, but let's just do this virtually. And please welcome Alex.
All right. Hello, everyone. Let me remove me from the screen as well. Hi, everyone. Lovely to be here. Joining me is our Chief Kitten Officer, Mr. Boy, who is just going to be part of this presentation, and that's just how life is. So I have a demo prepared for you for about Data Studio that Samir talked about a lot. But before I actually show you Data Studio and transforms and all the exciting stuff, I want to tell you a little story that happened to me at my actual job at Metabase just a couple of days ago. So I work a lot with our marketing team. Hey, if you're here, and they were interested in getting some information about our social activities, like what's happening on our LinkedIn, what are the posts that we're sharing, how many followers we're getting. So I was like, okay, LinkedIn Analytics. If you looked at it, it leaves you wanting, let me put it this way. So I thought, hey, we should just get this data into internal Metabase. So I connected, I got the connector and I ingested the data, and here is what I see. This is what I got. Now I'm looking at this and I'm just like, what? Organization time bound follower statistic? Like, what is that? There is a share statistic and a share statistic. And what does any of this mean? Like, obviously, I can't hand this to my marketing friends and say, go look at how many followers we got last month. I can't even get AI to understand this. And believe me, I tried to torture it to figure out what a share statistic is and how is it different from share statistic. So the reason I'm telling you this is because this data needs a lot of shaping and curation to make it usable by either humans or AI. And that is kind of the problem that our new, I guess, platform product suite of tools, Data Studio, solves. Data Studio is a set of tools that we released in Metabase 59, as Samir mentioned. If you are on Metabase Cloud, you already have it. So right after this demo, but not while I'm demoing, go check it out. And if you're on Metabase self-hosted, this is your sign to upgrade. If you're not using Metabase, what's stopping you, I guess, is my question. So in this demo, I'll show you pretty much exactly what I'm going to do with this awful LinkedIn data last week, but I'm going to show you it on a slightly nicer data set so it fits into half an hour that I have allotted for this. So the data that I'm working here is pretty standard. It's some, customer event data, some order products, all that stuff. And really what my goal here is to enable people who are using this Metabase instance, who are not me and who would much prefer to not have to do, data analytics and write SQL, to answer questions like, hey, how many active customers we have, or what's our ARR, for example. But if you look at this data, it's kind of not quite ready for prime time in the sense. You see, first of all, there's some obvious formatting issues, but you also see that there is some like test data from metabase.com. Maybe someone was checking out the new checkout flow. There's some missing data, like how did someone register without an email? That's clearly not a real person. This table doesn't help anyone to say like who are the active customers. There's no indication of activity, so I'll have to get it from someone else, maybe like from this events table. So there are a lot of shaping and modeling that needs to be done. to make this actually usable. So let's get started. First thing I'm going to show you is transforms that lots of people in the chat were excited about. And transforms, okay, stop me if you heard that one, transform your data. So let me start a new, I'm just going to go new SQL query, and to just not make you endure me typing in a live demo, let me just copy paste what I already have. So this is just some very basic SQL code that takes the customer table that we just saw, it does some little formatting adjustment, filters out some test accounts, and adds a little information about last activity. So the table is a bit cleaned up and has information about who are the actual active customers. Okay, so let me save it and call it customers, because customers enriched. Now, if you notice here, it's asking me about schema and table name, because what transforms do, it's not just a SQL script that retrieves a bunch of rows. Transforms do that. So they run the SQL query, they retrieve rows, and then they write this back to your data warehouse as a table, the table that I specified here, customers enriched. So let me show this to you in action. So I'm just going to run this transform. All right. And let me go back to my main app and see what happened to my database. I have a new table showing up here. If I click on this table, that's exactly our cleaned up table with a little activity. So stuff that we've done to model this data and make it a little more approachable by other people. So, very nice. I can write a query, then Metabase will run it and create a new data source from this query that other people can now use to build questions. Let me show you, like literally, I can just use it. It's literally just a table. It's not any kind of Metabase model or a view or anything. It's literally just a table. And because this is just a table, what I can do is continue transforming my data. So if I look at this customers enriched data, well, it's enriched by activity. So I can answer questions like, hey, who are my active customers? But it doesn't tell me anything about, what is, so to speak, monetary value of those people. So I can't answer questions like, what's their, what's our annual recurring revenue, for example. So I can just keep working on top of this table and add another transform, which I'm also going to copy paste. So this is another transforms that starts with my previous transforms table that I just created. You watched me do it, and that adds some more information from like another orders table about average orders value. So let me save it as customer final, because hopefully this has all the information I need. Famous last words. Let me again run it. Oh, look, it failed. Customers enriched does not exist. Did I call it customer enriched maybe? Customers. See, this is what happens when you do a live demo. I call it customers. Wonderful. There we go. All right, typos notwithstanding, what we have here is, I did a little of transformation. I did a little formatting, a little join from a little table. Then I kept building on top of this table and created another table that people can continue using as a new data source. Let me refresh this page. Hopefully it will. I need to actually run it first. Let's see. There we go. Hopefully it will show up. There we go, customer final. So what I'm showing you here is that you can build a successive data transformation pipeline inside Metabase. If I did not have this, I would use probably a maybe dedicated transformation tool, those that will not be named, or maybe some ingestion tools have this capability, or maybe I'll just write a bunch of SQL scripts and like schedule them with cron. But now I can build this entire DAG basically in Metabase, and it is actually like a DAG. Metabase will actually show you the complete dependency graph of your transformation journey. Like I started with events and customers table. I created a transforms called customers enriched, and which created a new table. Then I joined this with another table and created a new table. So it's literally a transformation pipeline with a backing DAG. But of course, you might say, this would not be much of a pipeline if I have to click on this run button over and over again. And of course, you can schedule to run it on some regular periods of time. For example, I can schedule it to run daily. These are just built-in tags that Metabase has, but you can also define your own tags. I can say maybe like weekday, I don't know, 10 a.m. And then I will be able to define also what the schedule means. So this will, what does this mean? I said run it on schedule with tags daily. That means that every day at midnight, Metabase will take this query, run it, and then take the results and create a table in my data warehouse that has those results. If I don't like it at midnight, I can go and say, maybe run it, I don't know, 6 a.m., for example. And Metabase is pretty smart. So I showed you this, that it recognizes all the dependencies and creates a full graph for you. And notice that I only scheduled my final transform to run daily. But if I go and look at the daily job, it actually tells me that it will run the transform that I actually scheduled and the transform that comes before that, right? Because, well, you can't just run one of them because it depends on the other. So Metabase needs to run both of those on a schedule. So let's see. And you can, by the way, create, like I said, you can create your own custom schedules. We come with some built-in jobs, but you can literally just say cron jobs. I think we have one at Metabase internally running at like 20 minutes past the hour, for example. So it's a real transformation pipeline that you can run on a schedule, and you might have picked already, and of course Samir told us about this in his presentation, that you can also do this with Python. I'm not going to show you this one, but I already did some pre-work here. I wrote this transform here that takes my events table. I have this events table where people are visiting my product, walking to different pages, and let's say I want to understand what happens within a session, like what one person does when on their one interaction with the product instead of like what they did with the product through the entire history. So I wrote a little transform that sessionizes the events within 30 minutes, and I wrote this in Python because that's a pretty annoying thing to do in SQL. Let's see if it works. Obviously, I mean, when I say I wrote it, I mean Claude wrote it. Hope we all understand that in 2026. Let me run it now. And okay, it worked. It created a new table called session events. And I can schedule it to run, let's say, since it's sessionizing events, data comes much more frequently than like new registrations. I'm going to say run it hourly. And I already hear some of you saying like, this is a lot of data. Like imagine events data. It's literally like millions and millions and millions of rows. And you don't want to run all of this on all of the data every hour. That's a lot of unnecessary work, especially considering that we are only interested in new events that just came in. So Metabase also has this option for you to do your transforms incrementally. Like I can say, only process new data, and let's select maybe timestamp, which means that Metabase will look at the timestamp in the original data and only process the data that is newer than the one that's already been written back into your database. All right, so transforms is just a convenience tool, like Samir said, to have your data transformation capability inside Metabase in the same place as you write your questions and dashboards. And you can schedule them, you can write them in SQL or Python. Let me pause for a second and see if there's anything interesting. Where is the transformation output stored? It's actually materialized. Yes, correct. All right, so we created some tables. Great, some customer tables, session events. We're done, right? People can just go and use this table to figure out who our active customers are, or what our MRR is, and that's never quite the case, right? This data is not quite ready to use. Like, we created it, it is modeled in the shape that we want, but that doesn't mean that people know how to use it. So let me go to this data structure section over here and find, here's a bunch of tables that I created. First of all, let me mark, maybe I'm gonna do the customers, and these, I'm gonna say this is, oh, I realized that I have, my window is not maximized. So I'm gonna say these are internal tables, because these are just the tables that I built as my intermediate step for my pipeline. And then I'm going to take my customer final table, and well, I'm going to call it final. And it needs some explanation, right? In a real life, I'll probably need to go and fill out all these descriptions, like what is billing period? It's a monthly or annual. I probably need to do some formatting work, like make sure that my dates are in the right format. Maybe I want to have it in like European normal people format. If I have like average order value or lifetime spend, I want this to be an actual dollar amount, not just a number, so I can format it as like currency in every table cell. Let's see if this works. There we go. So it will show up as an actual dollar. So all of this work that is quite nice to do for people, to get them to understand what this field means, and also tell people how they should interact with it. For example, if I have this first name, like, it's kind of, it doesn't make sense to have a first name filtering as a checkbox. So maybe I should actually make it like a search box, so that people don't get get a little overwhelmed by all the options. By the way, this is a session of Alex's, but a fun anecdote about Metabase is that we have so many Alexes that we literally have a field in our data model that is like, is Alex? Because I think we have like 7 of them, and I'm just one. All right, so all of this is nice, just a little nice flourishes to make your data slightly more usable by people and slightly more understandable. But what I really want to show you today is segments and measures. So when I go and I look at my customer final and I'm asking, how many active customers do we have? Do you know what active customer means? I mean, you data analysts probably do, but a random person in your organization, I mean, do they know how activity is defined? Do they even know who a customer is? Like, is someone on a free plan a customer or not? So segments help you write down these definitions in Metabase. So I can create a new segment and say, let me look at like people active in the last 30 days and people who are not on the free plan. And I'm going to call this active customers. All right. So what I just did is I created an official definition of what an active customer is. All right. If I now go back to my user land in Metabase and I try to build a question on this customer final table, let me probably need to refresh this page because I just defined it. But I will see this segment active customers popping up right in filter, right? So a person using this table does not need to think like, okay, if I want to just filter for active customers, which one of these 30 fields do I need to use? They're just like, okay, I'm just going to use this predefined segment. And you can define, of course, many more segments like what is a customer at risk? Who is a churned customer, right? And the same for every table, like orders, products, session events. Like maybe you want to define what is an event that led to a conversion. You can also define this as a segment as well. And similarly, measures are saved aggregations on a table. So think about it as like your custom formula. If I'm looking at my customers and I want to ask, hey, what's our MRR, like monthly recurrent revenue? That's not an easy question, right? Because we have people on different plans, people with different billing cycles. So there's like a lot of complexity that goes into computing this number. Probably not everyone in the organization knows how to compute this number, and you definitely don't want them inventing a new definition of recurring revenue, right? So you can say, let me define a measure, and I'm also going to make use of copy paste. There's some computation of recurrent revenue that I invented. I'm going to call it MRR. I'm going to save a new measure, MRR, as well. So now, if I, again, refresh this so it would pull the new measure and start a new question. Nope, not the right database. Here's my active customer segment, and I see this MRR measure popping up just alongside with regular stuff like count or sum, ready to use for anyone. They don't have to think about how it's defined. It's just a thing that they can click on, and it can be used like any sum or count. I can like create MRR by state, for example, and build a question. Let me maybe save this question to a dashboard. There we go. So this data structure is a tool for structuring your data and creating common definitions, making sure that you have all the little flourishes and formatting right, and creating common definitions like what is an active customer or what is MRR that other people can then reuse instead of inventing their own. And by the way, so this creates a formula for monthly recurrent revenue, but if what you need is really just like explain to people what words mean, there's also a glossary where you can just literally write MRR means monthly recurring revenue. See, I can't type. There we go. All right, so this is also a glossary shared for everyone in the instance, so you can just define terms that are used across your organizations, and you can define formulas in segments and measures. Okay, so now we have these tables, we have all these segments and measures, we have a common definition. You might even say this is a beginning of a semantic layer. But we're still not done, right? Because I'm going to my database over here, and I'm like, what should I even use, right? Which one of these? I have 3 customer tables. Which one of these should I use? I have these order items table, which is just a join table between orders and products. Like, it's still not clear for a person just logging into this instance to know what they should start with. So I can make use of the library. So the library is a set of curated data. So you did all this work to transform, to shape your data, to create common definitions of measures and metrics. And now you actually want to surface this exact data to your users. So I'm going to create a library, and let me publish a table. I'm going to publish my final table, right? Because this is the table that I want people to use. I don't want people to use those intermediate tables. So what this creates for the person using your Metabase is, first of all, there is now a new data section over here, so people know where to go, and what they will see is your curated tables instead of, everything on the instance like this. So they know that this is the data they can start with, and when they start a new question, they will also see only the tables that you curated by default. Of course, they can also probably navigate to all of the other ones, but they won't see a mass of 200 different tables when they just try to ask their question, right? So you have this table, you already have predefined segments and predefined measures, and people can start exploring their data right there. So this is a source, like verified collection of sources of truth. And of course, for this to be a real source of truth, it should be version controlled, which you can set up as well, but I'm not going to demo it because I'm a little going almost over time. All right, so you can transform your data and shape it into whichever way you want. You can create common definitions of segments and measures, like what is an active customer, and you can surface this curated data in the library. And I kind of buried the lead here is that all of this, of course, makes things easier for your users, but it's also what makes it easier for AI to understand your data. So it doesn't have to understand what is share statistic versus share statistic. Let's see if I can, live demo of AI almost famously goes well, but let me see if I can actually, let me close this so it doesn't try to use what I already have here. Let me see, give me MRR for active customers by plan, for example. Let's see how it works. Yeah, so see, it tells me it is starting. I didn't tell it which database to use. It uses a sample database. Sorry about this. So let me stop this and say, give me MRR for active customers from customer final. There we go. And it should be using the exact definitions that I gave it, like the definitions of segments and measures. You can see it's telling you that it has a predefined measure, predefined segment, which means your AI doesn't have to guess or hallucinate what is MRR or active customer. This is how you tell your AI what it needs to be using, and it not only applicable for internal Metabot that I'm using over here, but also for Agent API that Luis will be showing later on. All right, and the final thing, as I have about 1 minute left, but it's my favorite thing, is that because your transformations are in Metabase, and all your definitions are in Metabase, and you have all your tables are in Metabase, we can now build a complete picture of the data lineage from like the source to the moment that you see a revenue number on a dashboard. So I can see, like, here's my dashboard where I saved my question. Here's a poorly named question that I built a couple of minutes ago. And I can see exactly where each number comes from. I know that the number that this question displays uses the measure that I defined and the segment that I defined, and is built on the customer final table. I know that this table is coming from a customer final transform, which uses the orders table and is built on another table that is built on another transform, which uses the other table. So I can track the complete lineage of this data from the moment it enters the system to the moment it's displayed on a dashboard. And of course, if something breaks, which I don't have time anymore to show you, I will also know this. I have this dependency diagnostic, which is currently empty because nothing breaks. But if something is broken in this entire chain of events, Metabase will tell you. So you know that where all your data comes from, and you know that you will see if something goes wrong. All right, I'm going to stop and at the moment, and I'm gonna take off my screen from the stream. And Robert, what should we do now? Should we answer some questions or move on to
Yes,
the next talk?
that's
All right.
yeah, that was the idea. So yeah, we'll just quickly go through a few. We have a lot of questions,
Yeah.
but let me just ask you a couple, and I'm going to paraphrase them to sort of like summarize a few. So there was one group that asked about whether these transforms are end up as materialized tables and where those live.
Yeah. So at this moment, these are real materialized tables, and they live in a schema that you specify. So if you want, we actually recommend what we do internally is we have a special schema where specifically for the results of the transforms, and that's a good way to approach it. But stay tuned for maybe version 61, where we release something called workspaces, which makes this a lot safer for you to play around with. Okay, next question.
And people have full control over those tables. So one question was about creating indices for these tables as well. Is that something we can do?
So right now we kind of regenerate this table every time. So the index, you can define an index, but it's going to get removed when the table is regenerated. But it is something that this is something that we definitely have interest in doing, and has been talking about internally quite a few times. So same answer as from Cynthia: upvote a feature request, and maybe we'll build it. Right. Next.
And then there are a few questions about version control. I think you touched on this a little bit, but can you talk a bit about how you can version control these transforms?
Yeah, so you can version control transforms, library, and by the way, any top-level collection in Metabase. You don't have to use Data Studio to do version control. We're just using the same version control as we use for the rest of Metabase. So it works based on our serialization feature, where all the content that you define in metrics, all your questions, dashboards, transforms, and so on, get it serialized as YAML files. And then you can, where's my mouse? There's my mouse. And then you can specify a repo and an access token, and either put your instance in read-write mode, where everything you do on an instance can be pushed to GitHub, or you can set your instance in read-only mode, where the content that you see is getting pulled from GitHub. Let me see if I have any content on my own little Metabase sync repo. Yeah, so it's going to be stuff like this, where here's what I have a serialized library. Here's my serialized data. So it's serialized as YAML files that are defining how the content looks like, and Metabase knows how to read these. You don't have to understand this, and then you can set your version to just automatically read from the repo, so that your instance is always in read-only mode and people can't modify it except by going through a development process where they push something to GitHub, open a pull request, approve it, and all that jazz. Cool. Next.
Great. And then there was another question about whether the results of transforms are live or whether they run on a schedule. I think you also touched on this, but maybe this is something worth reiterating how this works.
Yeah, so the results of transforms by themselves are like nothing. You can run them manually, and if you don't run them manually, nothing happens. But you have the ability to schedule them on any kind of schedule you want. We provide some built-in options like daily, hourly, monthly, weekday, or you can create a new job and create whatever schedule. I don't know. I don't remember cron syntax, so I'm not going to try to write crons in live, but you can define, weekday at 17:43, run this transform, and then just specify which tags do you want to run in this job, and Metabase will automatically pull whatever transforms you have with this special tag. So they're not live, they're run on a schedule, but scheduling is up to you.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I think this is all we have time for.
Okay.
But thanks again for this great demo and for answering all the questions. I really appreciate that.